Chief Secretary.
Well, I'm pleased to tell my honourable friend that in the spring statement we allocated £1.5 billion to make sure that we are prepared for all eventualities in the European negotiations.
Mr. Peter Bone.
Grateful for the Deputy Chancellor for her response. Could she say whether she'd had the opportunity to look at table 428 in the OBR report accompanying the autumn statement? It shows between 2019 and 2023, in those 4 years, sir, a Brexit dividend of £55 billion. Would the Deputy Chancellor agree with her own figures that leaving the EU would be a great economic benefit to this country?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question. There is indeed money that will be released as a result of us leaving the European Union. We are working on the spending review, which will take place next year, and part of the job of that spending review will be looking at how we allocate that money domestically.
Cadbury.
Mr. Speaker, many of my constituents work in the financial sector, financial services sector specifically. Doesn't the Chancellor recognise that the closest possible alignment with the single market is the best possible outcome for this vital sector?
Well, my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, made a speech recently outlining the future of financial services and making sure we get the best possible deal with the European Union. But let's remember, London is a global financial centre. It was recently rated the best in the world. And as well as getting the best deal with the EU, we also need to make sure that we can trade with the rest of the world too.
Jonathan Edwards.
It seems to me that over recent months the UK has changed its position of negotiating the final deal before transition period to now negotiating the final deal during the transition period. Isn't it the reality that the British Government's negotiating position will be considerably weakened once we've left the EU?
Well, we've made huge progress in the European negotiations. We're seeing business confidence increasing, we're seeing investment increasing, and by this autumn we should have a clear framework that we've agreed with the EU so that businesses have that certainty about future investment.
Jonathan Reynolds.
The UK's economic growth in the final quarter of 2017 was the weakest of any economy in the G7. And the OBR is forecasting the UK is on course for our worst period of economic growth since the end of the Second World War. But none of these already dire forecasts, Mr. Speaker, factor in a no-deal Brexit, which would severely impact jobs, growth and tax revenues. Now, we know the Chancellor knows this and indeed has said so publicly. The question is, why aren't his colleagues listening to him?
Well, it's very important that in the negotiations with the European Union, we always keep the option of no deal on the table. Otherwise, we won't get the best possible deal. But we are very confident of achieving a good deal. And why is it that the honourable gentleman isn't welcoming the fantastic economic news we've had this morning? The lowest unemployment again since 1975, wages up by 2.8%. It seems to me there are an awful lot of Eeyores on the opposition benches.
Mercer.